Hello, hello. Welcome, everybody. What's up, Sarah?
I feel like it's been a really long time since
It
we've
has
done this.
been. Yes, it has been.
Been a while. I
How do you
missed
feel?
it.
You
I'm glad
missed
we're
it.
back.
I know. I like talking about random stuff
Yeah.
around startup things with other smart people.
But we've been busy. We've been building. We have
We
to actually
oh
build our
man.
startups.
Yeah. I'm like in the phases of building a startup. I'm in my favorite mode. It's pure building, and like you can imagine anything happening. You don't have any of the problems. We're a super small team. We're in the
Yeah.
office, where we have a bunch of robots working. It's really cool. Yeah, before all hell breaks loose as you scale up a
I
company.
like that. Don't have any of the problem.
It's
We have
Or
all
very,
of the
very,
problem.
very little of the problems. Well, what should we start off with as a topic?
I mean, there's been so much since we last talked, but I feel like we should start with the most timely things that everyone is talking about.
And that's something to do with AI, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I think so. I think since we last spoke, like Grok was not really in the running.
Yeah,
Yeah, like, I knew it was a thing that, like, Elon was working on, and it was, like, a tab in X you could
yeah,
go to, but I thought it was, like, for, like, asking about, like, stupid meme stuff, like, I didn't realize it actually worked, and then people started talking about Grok 3, which is new,
yeah, yeah,
and I've been playing around with it, and it's legit, like, it actually Uh, it does a lot of the stuff that ChatGPT does, like, it almost looks
yeah,
exactly like ChatGPT, and it has, like, a deep search function
right,
that, is kinda like a competitor to deep research,
right.
but for free, like, you don't have to
Yeah,
pay,
yeah.
and
For
I
now,
yeah,
obviously.
yeah, but I feel like this has a chance, like, the fact that it's, like, right there in, X that has a lot of users already, also known as Twitter.
Yeah,
And it seems to be, like there's some queries I see it doing better on, some I see it doing worse on it, but it seems right up there in the running, which is
yeah.
really interesting to me.
Yeah, it is interesting, and it was just a matter of, well, from what I know is just that Elon and team were able to get a lot of capital together and form a bunch of data centers faster than anybody else was able to. And that was like kind of the competitive advantage they had versus a chat GPT who had to raise their own funding. And they were obviously like one of the first to get going. And there are obviously a lot of first mover advantages here. But yeah, Grok is now in the mix. I do think ultimately, I think we're going through like a Google moment. Like Google was like what was it, like the 27th search engine out there or something like
Mm.
that. I think I do think, because I've played around with Grok and I played around with ChatGPT and everything else, and Claude I'd use for, like, coding, but, like, just general information, I don't know. I think that, the brand power of ChatGPT is really powerful, and I think it's gonna be really hard for anybody else to, as long as the ChatGPT or OpenAI doesn't stop
Yeah.
innovating, I think it's gonna be really hard for others to compete with kind of the branding effect that they've kind of captured out of the market.
I mean, brand can definitely be a moat, but I also think there is a distribution aspect to these. Like, ideally, these would be in my normal tools and workflow that I'm already using. Um, Because it is really cumbersome, like, whenever I'm trying to do something, I have to then go to ChatGPT and, like, do it and then, like, paste it back into the thing or, change the format of the output. Um, and ChatGPT itself, like, the interface kinda
Yeah,
sucks. Like, it's, like, actually really hard to, like, give it, like, prompts with, like, a lot of information. Like, you can't you I kinda have to be like, "Hey, I'm gonna give you something. Don't do anything yet."
yeah,
Yeah, I'm gonna give you the next thing. Don't
yeah,
do anything yet, I just want you to read it. Okay, now the next thing, now the next thing,
yeah,
and then ask it a question, like, it's really quite clunky for that, and I
Right.
wish there was, like, better ways to give it context. I feel like someone's just gotta build a really good interface, and that interface may be like, "Hey, use a platform that we're already using all the time," like Meta or
Yeah.
X or Instagram. Um,
I don't know. I
but
think like
yeah,
when those you think of like the compound startups. I think a company that just focuses on one thing and one thing only has just a natural advantage because like OpenAI does not exist without their product. Grok is within
I think it is
X.
a separate I think XAI,
Sure,
though, is a separate entity
sure, sure.
from X with, like, some kinda shared stake, but yeah, I mean, like, I think ChatGPT, they have a clear lead here, but, I just wish their interface was better,
Yeah,
and worked better with other tools that I'm already using, like, I feel like there's so much opportunity, and it's, like, right now just a chat box
yeah,
that I can, like, type stuff into, I can't even, like, format it.
right,
Really annoying.
right.
And so I do also feel like they're kind of blowing their lead a little bit. I know I'm sure they have a lot of stuff to work on, but the interface is so basic that I
Yeah,
feel like, gosh, could you just hire like a couple designers and a few engineers and like actually make that usable? That'd be awesome. Um, but speaking of focus, there's
yeah,
another topic. This hasn't gotten talked about. I shared this article, but I haven't seen anyone else share it or talk about it.
yeah, yeah,
It was in the information, an exclusive about Brex a year after turmoil has profits in sight. And I thought this was really interesting because basically Brex brought in its 28-year-old co-founder as the new
yeah,
CEO.
yeah.
He launched this turnaround that was really focused on doing less, reducing costs, cutting back so that they could reach profitability.
Right.
Uh, so it was like a kind of a cost-cutting turnaround, but as a result, they grew revenue, which I don't think was the goal or the focus, and I think that really goes to your point of sometimes less is more, and, like, Brex especially, I mean,
Yeah.
we're Brex, we have a Brex cards, and we use Brex, and I'm a big fan, but, like, they have been really all over the place, like, billboards, events, they would invite me all the time to, like they owned some office space in San Francisco or like a lounge space they used to invite their users to. I mean, they were just like really blowing money and doing lots of things that I felt like, you really need to do this to run a credit card business? Like, I don't want to go to your stupid events. I just want like your credit cards to give me good rewards and to work well,
Right, right,
expense management.
right.
And I feel like they've cut all of that and really focused on just like making a really good product. And it's paid off.
Well, yeah, yeah, so far it has. I think the other story which you were talking about, which is Mercury. So anybody who has watched this pod, we've had Ahmad, the founder, on. He's a
Yes,
good friend of
many
mine.
times,
Yeah,
right?
many times. Yeah.
Times.
And they've just rumored to be
Rumors.
raising a big round from Sequoia.
And we have
And
no inside information, we're just going with what the press says, we
I
don't
do, but I'm not
oh,
gonna say any.
oh.
Uh,
Alright, so is it true? Did they raise it? We don't know.
I yeah,
We're
that's
sharing it on this podcast, so
yeah, that there's articles out there claiming that Sequoia is leading the round. Um, but Ahmad actually took the opposite approach. So what he did is he first built a bank, right? A B2B bank.
Mhm,
He leveraged all of his connections. So his background was that he had I think it was an ad tech company he sold for like maybe $50 million or something like that. And then he was a YC partner. And then he just started angel investing in a shitload of companies. And he wanted to create a product that he knew that it was just like, if you create the best thing here, there's just so many people that he knows that would actually use this. So he's like, YC, I'm connected to YC. I know all these startups. I'm like, I could just like get like instant distribution and feedback from all of these companies. This was also this was before the SVB collapse, but still SVB has always been like clunky and there hasn't been like a really nice interface and all of that. Um, and um, and also this is at the time where Brex was like were only a credit card, and he focused on building the best bank for startups, super small startups initially, and now he's grown up market. And now he offers everything. They have a credit card, they have
Yeah.
treasury, they have bill payments, they have everything. But he's done it in a profitable way. So I think, and they've announced that every single round that they've done.
That's amazing.
I believe they've been profitable for probably like 5 years or so, which is really, like, crazy for, like, a company like that. Like, Brex, and I'd probably credit it to how Ahmad, for one, is a seasoned founder, for two, sees a ton of businesses that just blow a shitload of money, and he did
Yeah.
not wanna run his business like that, versus, like, Brex or a lot of the other, fintech banks that are just running and fintech right now is not hot. Um, and they're just running in like unprofitable businesses, and he kind of took the opposite approach. And that's why I think like having Sequoia lead a later round is like a very, very great sign for your business at this stage. So kudos to him. And also it's kind of if you've been in the startup industry long enough, you'll see as a founder you'll see friends that become billionaires. And if this is rumor is true, I've known Ahmad for 10 years now, and he's probably a billionaire. And it's kind of interesting to see that
Well, at
happen.
least on paper,
Yeah,
it's
of
not
course, of
it's
course.
not liquid until you have real liquidity, which is, you know, something
Yeah.
you sometimes learn the hard way. But
Have you seen that? Have you seen that, Sarah, in your circles that some founders just like take off and they're either you talk to them still or their company's just worth a bajillion dollars?
oh yeah. I mean, I have billionaire friends who's
Yes.
pretty awesome, and some of these people I knew before they,
Right.
made
Same.
they were doing well, but, like, they didn't have the exit, and again, like, an exit in terms of your company's valuation is different from, like, your your real life,
Yeah,
exit versus, like, on paper when it's not
of
liquid,
course.
no one's buying your shares. Um, but, probably in a deal like this, there's actually some secondary.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. I think, like, you would expect that, like, billionaires have, walk around differently or act differently, but it's amazing. Like, you have some friends with a lot of money, and they, you know, may have some lifestyle changes, but
Yeah.
for the most part, they still worry about the same things, have a lot of the same problems you have. And money doesn't solve everything. It actually doesn't even solve most things. Um, so I'm not sure that a billionaire is something that I necessarily strive to be. I would like to have enough money where I'm comfortable and can do the things I want to do in life. But
Yeah.
seeing people that have huge paydays, um, it's not necessarily something I personally aspire to.
That's my goal. So we'll agree to disagree on that
You
that
wanna be a
instant.
billionaire?
Of course, yeah. That's why I'm building the biggest possible business I know how. That's why I keep on coming back to the mat, Sarah.
I would like to have a billion-dollar company, but I don't personally need to be a billionaire.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think there's
Right,
I
I
think
think
$1
there's
billion dollars is just more than you ever need to spend in your lifetime or your, family's lifetime. It's just too much money.
sure, yeah.
Brings a lot of
Anyways,
problems.
I'm just driven to just try to be, like, the best, and I wanna
Yeah.
leave something out there that I can look back on and be like, "I was like I did this with a group of people, and it's freaking awesome, and other customers love it, and they're still using it." That's what I really want
Yes. I think
do.
I wanna have an impact. I think, obviously, your company doing well and making lots of money helps you have a bigger impact, but,
Yeah,
um I've been willing to give up a good deal of equity along the way because I personally don't need to be the only one that benefits from
yeah,
the
of course.
success. One more thing on Mercury. They're having a conference for ambitious founders.
Yes.
I know because I'm speaking at it. It's on May 20th, 2025, and they actually have tickets on sale. So if you're interested in learning about how you can, have raised $3 billion from Sequoia and or sorry, be valued at over $3 billion and
Oh,
raised money
you
from Sequoia.
and Seeker are both speaking at it.
Oh, so he asked us, but not you. That's sad.
Yeah, what the hell? I've literally I've led like he called me one time he was sick. He was doing one of his Mercury events and I'd led the entire fucking thing.
Yeah,
God
well, you
damn it,
can make
Ahmad.
it here.
Well,
Uh,
I do have a smaller company now, so that's fine. That's cool. Yeah, that looks like a
and if you go
good
to the
conference to go.
landing page, you can see the worst possible drawing of me I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It's pretty unflattering, but anyway,
Yeah.
I'm sure the conference will be good. What else? What else do we have to talk about?
Um, I think um I think I'd go back to AI. I was going to follow up something that you were having. I'm finding a lot more use cases, and everybody continues to say it's going to be bigger than anything else. I'm currently, and I can't say too much what I'm doing with it right now,
Mhm.
but I'm basically using it as a lawyer to help
Oh, yeah.
somebody. Um, how much? What can I say here? To go back and forth with a public company that this person may sue, and it's literally writing every single thing down, and we're trying to get a settlement before we go to court and have to hire a lawyer or something like that, but we'll be willing to do that. But literally, I copy and paste the responses from the legal team at this public company, and it just spits out the exact email to send them in like 2 seconds, and it cites like former court cases, and it is fucking insane. And
Yeah.
it's just going to give people the ability like, I can imagine if the ChatGPT was not there, probably wouldn't even have engaged, with this, potential lawsuit, against this public company, and it's around shares and stuff like that. But now it's just so easy, and it just doesn't cost anything with a lawyer, and it's just gonna this is where AI just kinda, like, levels everybody else up. You're able to do a lot more, so it's gonna create a lot more economic activity, that people just don't know what exactly is going to, happen, and I'm just blown away by, the responses that I've gotten from GPT on this, and I
Yeah.
continue to use it also for work stuff. Like I go back and forth brainstorming stuff and like looking at asking it about history and like what was the commonality here. I'm a believer that history repeats itself and some or at least rhymes. So like when you're thinking about big markets or different things or why a company failed here, there's just a lot of insight. It's like you have like your own personal assistant you could just like type a question to and it could just like it gives you all of the information that's out there that humans have access to. It's pretty unbelievable, and I think that we're still just scratching the surface, and it's just gonna up-level, I think, everybody. And also, like, the startups that are using it right now, like, we're still a super small company, and we have the money to hire more people, but we don't need to because we're able to use a lot of these different tools, that, just, like, allow us to be so much more productive. And it's just remarkable. And so, like, if you're not using any of this stuff, you're going to get left behind in the dust, whether you're an employee or a founder or whoever you are. It just like gives you another leg up. And it's just, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if you
Yeah.
have any other
I,
use cases that you're using it for right
I
now.
don't know if I shared this on here, but if you operate in California, there's these California privacy laws that are quite strict. And most businesses operate in California. They have users in California.
Yep.
And there are these like basically troll law firms out there. There's like a few big ones that try to get consumer facing companies on these California privacy law violations. Like, there's
Yes.
just, thousands and thousands of lawsuits trying to get companies to just settle. They rarely even bring these cases to court, and
Right.
these law firms, they're really operating in a gray area. Like, it's not, because there's no one that was like, they're finding users to bring this litigation against consumer companies.
Yeah.
They're really operating in a pretty gray area with regards to if they should be allowed to kind of bring these troll cases to
Right.
court.
Right.
But anyway, they're doing it, and we got hit by one. And generally, like, we talked to a lawyer who specializes in this, and the lawyer was like, "Look, you just settle these. This is what it's going to cost you." And it's kind of like based on the size of your company, like the settlement they're going to
Yeah.
look for and be happy with, and you retain that lawyer to kind of negotiate the settlement, and so you're basically going to pay the lawyer this amount. You're going to pay this amount for the settlement. And I was like, you know what? Like, I wanna try. I wanna
Right.
try. Like, I understand I probably will have to settle, but, like, let me give myself, like, kind of a amount of money I'm willing to pay to try. And I did use ChatGPT, um, kinda gave them all the information.
Yes.
We kind of talked to the lawyer who has experience with these cases, so I did give them information about, like, when these cases are dropped or thrown out and they
Right.
don't go to a settlement, like, what kinds of loopholes are generally found. Anyway, we found a pretty significant,
Yeah.
and I should say, like, the AI basically found an angle we could take where, like, they didn't have much of a case.
Right.
Um, and we kind of wrote back with that information, and the troll law firm dropped the claim. They
Right.
said, like, "Okay." And, they can bring another one because that's what they do, but it's, not likely. They're gonna
Yeah.
it'll We'll be hit by some other troll law firm for something else.
Right.
But I think that's just an example of, like, there is, uh, ways to use these tools to get insights and strategies that, you may not just have access to that. You don't have the expertise on your team. You don't have the time or energy to think about it, but you're able to, like, kind of give them the information, the
Yeah.
institutional knowledge, and be like, go at it. What do you think is my best bet here for how to fight this? And they gave me a strategy, and I tried it, and it worked. Um, and, it could have not worked, but in this case it did. And I feel like, yeah, like, these tools exist now that are really powerful. You do have to remember to use them, like,
Yes.
where
You
it
need to
makes
get into
sense to
the
use them, because
yeah.
in this case, like, I coulda just followed the normal path, which is you settle, it costs this much,
Mhm.
and you move on, and you get on with your day. But, um, it was enough money that I'd have to pay to settle that I was like, I wanna give this a shot." I think I'm willing to spend a little bit more here to a little bit more time and potentially money in terms of the settlement, just to kind of not have to pay it.
Right.
And I think that's an assessment, like, you have to make now with kind of like every task you do. Like, is this, because I send millions of emails a day. It's like, is this one worth running through ChatGPT and, like, getting feedback? Like, many times, no. Like,
Yeah.
I just send a quick response, but sometimes yes, and sometimes it can be helpful if there's a lot of kind of strategy that's required to, you know, accomplish your goal.
Yeah, it really is. It's like a different muscle, and I think that the people that are getting into technology or any industry right now, like I would offer that, like get that into the way that you work,
Yeah.
like make it because it's really hard, and then there's going to be a lot of like older people in the workforce that just never get around to this, and it's just like they're going to be doing the same things. They're
You
going
know
to
what
be
I do? I, like, and it was funny because Aaron Levy, also a guest of the pod,
yes.
tweeted on Friday night. He's like, "Raise your hand if you're working on AI tonight." And Elon responded and was like, "I am, but last time I raised my hand, I got in trouble because, he did that Nazi move."
Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
but, I thought that was, like, the funniest exchange. But anyway, that's literally what I do is, like, after the kids go to bed, I have, like, a list of stuff that, like, I wanted to mess around with, but, like, I didn't wanna waste time the day because I didn't know if, like, AI is really useful here. Is it gonna
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
out? And like that's what I work on. And like, sometimes it's like, okay, this was a waste of time, but I
Right.
don't feel bad about it because it's like my nighttime. And so I thought that was funny, like Friday night, like that is exactly what I was doing. I wasn't working on AI. I wasn't like building new models, which I think is what Aaron was like getting at, but I'm
Right.
like using some of these AI tools I haven't had a chance to like play around with or try, or using like ChatGPT to try to do something I hadn't used it to do before.
Yeah.
And that's how I kind of rationalize, like, spending time.
Right. Right. Yeah, it's fucking awesome. And it yeah, as much as you can use it and just make it part of your habit, or you're thinking of an idea and just like write it down. I was like, what do you think about this? Or like where like how would you structure this? Or even things like I bet you like we may use that to like draft our terms of service, our privacy policy. I'll be
Yeah.
like base it off of these three different companies, their privacy policies and all that, and then I wouldn't even have to go to a lawyer to get it all done. It's all the
Or,
same
like,
shit.
"Here's what my company does. What company should I base my privacy
Yeah,
policy
and
off of?"
it's like, here's their privacy policies. It's like, take them and like then this is what we do differently, and like put it in there, and it's like it's done. It's pretty amazing what it's able to do. I also got it to do so part of this thing that I'm doing right now is that it's just stupid shit that they shared a Google Drive image that you couldn't actually copy it at all. So it was a PDF. You couldn't print it. You couldn't copy it. And so I just took screenshots of every single page, and I'm just like asked ChatGPT, I'm like, make this editable in a
Mm.
PDF, and it just like made it there, and it could read the whole thing versus me not being able to.
Dumbest thing, though, about Google Drives, if you share something with someone as a viewer, they can't actually copy the text.
No, I know, it's
Oh my god,
crazy.
like, no one ever wants that. Like,
Yeah,
you could copy the text on a web page even though you're just a viewer. Like, why would Google Docs make that the default?
I
Like,
don't know. I don't
so
know.
dumb, so
Yeah,
annoying.
I
And
don't
so I
know.
always now have to give people edit access to
Yeah,
my docs just so they can copy them.
yeah. No,
I hate
yeah, but that's another example of what these AI tools could do, and it's just things that
that.
you never would have thought to do before, or you'd like search online for some like image generator to PDF or something like that, and then it would just be whatever. But everything in one
And
place
that's
is
the
pretty.
the thing that I've found that Grok is a lot better at, Grok 3 than
Yeah.
ChatGPT, is, like, working with large data sets. Like, even, like, if you give ChatGPT, like, a 1,000-row data set,
Yep.
and you're like, "Can you reformat these columns and find the email for," like, it will do, like, 5 rows, and then it'll, like, throw up and be like,
Yeah.
"Oh, do you want me to finish?" And then I'll be like, "Yeah." And then I'll do, like, 5 more, and it's like, "I'm done."
Right.
Like, literally all the time, I'm trying to get it to work with large data sets. So there's some, like, spreadsheet plugins that are kinda helpful, but Grok could actually handle a large data set. And
Right.
I'm not talking
Right.
massively large, I'm talking like 1,000 rows. It could then reformat it, do the stuff
Right.
I wanted,
Right.
and give it back to me, and I was like, "Finally."
Right.
Yes.
Right.
But yeah, ChatGPT just sucks at that.
Yeah. It'll get there. They got some
Or they're,
funding.
like, blocking it, like, they're I don't know, they don't
Maybe
want.
you gotta upgrade to the $200 plan. Who knows,
Oh, I did.
Sarah?
I'm paying for it. I'm
Oh,
paying
okay,
for
you
it,
are.
and it still
Alright.
sucks. Even if you, like, try to get deep research to do it, still sucks.
Yeah.
It does not wanna do spreadsheet stuff. But
What do
Grok.
you think what do you think right now if you were so for the new founders that are thinking about building companies right now,
Yeah.
thinking about, like, all of the AI that is out there, how you can build, a startup with less people. How if you were, say, 25 years old, what would you do?
Yeah, I mean, I think exactly that, like, you can start a lot smaller now, and when I was 25 years old, I couldn't start a company
Would you
because,
start a company, or would you join another company?
um, I think it depends if you have an idea and something you're passionate about, and the ability to potentially raise money if you wanna raise money, but I think it opens up, like, who can start companies a lot more than before. Like, you had to be able to raise capital before. There was actually an article somewhere, about, like, siege strapping,
Yeah,
and how that's become, like, more of a trend. Like, you could just raise a little bit of capital now and start your company to a point where it's revenue generating, and then you don't need to raise more. But that's
sure.
not technically bootstrapping where you're not, like, paying the first 500K out of pocket, but it's basically bootstrapping, and I feel like that's, like, exactly what AI enables now, whereas, like, when I was
Yeah.
I needed to be able to raise millions.
Yeah, I think this is the whole YC thing. I honestly think that I actually completely disagree with you. I think that um
You sh don't need to you do need to raise millions?
no, what I would do is I would join like a Series B company and I would try to get as many connections as possible. I would try to get closer to the CEO and for him or her to invest in my company that I was going to start.
But, like, you don't
And
need that anymore. Like, you did used to need, like, at least $1,000,000 to really get started and get off
no,
the
no,
ground.
no. But here's the thing. I think you need like I think the secret is that the cost and the ability to build everything has gone so far down that you're just gonna have duplicates of all of the same shit. And so what you need to have is you need to have experience. You need to have some sort of insight into some sort of industry that nobody else has. And you
Yeah.
can't do that as like a 25-year-old kid that hasn't really been in the
Well,
industries or anything like that. You just don't have the ideas or anything.
maybe. I mean, I think it just matters less, like, your access to capital, and it's a lot more about who you are, your insights, what makes you tick. Can you be the kind of founder that can work on this thing for 10 years, 20 years? Like, that, I think, is gonna matter a lot more than your access. And access
I
you
I
can
I
be
don't think I don't think capital is the reason that people could not start companies now. I do think it's much easier. Like just YC, how many companies they've taken each batch now? What 300? Like just go to YC and you get 500K easy,
well,
like super easy.
that's
And so I think a lot like what happened to the, direct to consumer space. Like, if you remember, like, the major brands, who's a good example of this? That got like a ton of venture, bonobos, a great example. This is in the era of D2C brands, and they thought that they were like you could get like tech multiples out of them.
yeah,
But it turned out that there was no differentiation, and it actually was like pretty easy to create a kind of a like a lookalike brand because you have manufacturing overseas and you could outsource a lot of the stuff and all that stuff. I think that's the same thing that's happening to a lot of like these smaller startups. So I think like if you are looking for like an outsized outcome, which you should be if you're taking venture, yeah, if you want to create a company that's going to be doing like $5 million in revenue or $10 million, sure, fine, 500K, yeah, you can get up running and that's it. But if you're looking to create a company doing hundreds of millions of dollars or billions of dollars of revenue, I think it's even harder than it ever has been. And I think that you need to have some sort of insight into some sort of
yes.
industry that nobody else has, and you need to also have the experience that what it takes to actually build these different companies. Because there's so much competition out there, just like there was in the DTC space. Like, just look at Shopify now. Shopify has millions and millions and millions of brands. I think there's like 5,000 or 6,000 new, what they call like Shopify Plus customers who are doing millions of GMV a year because it's just so easy to like, you come up with a unique idea, you market it, and you can sell it, and you can outsource some manufacturing. I think that's the same thing that's happening to like the bottom quartile of these startups. So I think there's going to be a lot more startups created, but I think there's going to be a lot fewer like massive outcomes. And I think
Sure.
it's going to tend to be the people who have a lot of experience and probably tend to be a little bit older. So I think like the mean age for $1 billion company is going to actually increase rather than decrease. Um, uh,
I agree on those massive outcomes. I think most companies, like the vast, vast majority, 99% of companies are not going to have a massive outcome. And so like
no.
there is more opportunity now to start a company in a way that sets you up for success, even if that success is not a massive, massive, massive multi-billion dollar outcome. Um, by not raising too much capital, by doing more with AI, and by increasing the number of people who can do that, who have access to that. Like even YC, like pretty sure you have to move to San Francisco. That makes it out of reach for most people. Like,
Yeah, only for the actual the time, the 3 months or whatever, and then
right.
you can
No,
go
well, if
wherever.
you have a family, you're not moving for 3 months to like the crime-ridden San Francisco. Like you're just not doing it. Like
San Francisco's not that bad. Come on
it's
now.
not.
You're
Um,
in
I
come on,
wouldn't
you're in
do it, like,
The South Bay,
even
it's
coming from,
fine.
like, the peninsula, if I had to move to San Francisco for 3 months, no way, like, I can't do it, I have a family.
I know, I
So,
know.
like, the number of people who can start these companies is so small historically because you either need to do this, like, incubator that takes 300 people, or you need to have access to capital, which is just a tiny fraction of the human population.
Yeah.
And not to mention anyone who lives outside of the United States. I mean, good luck getting anything.
And that's exactly why if I was 25 again, I would join a like Series B company and I would just network the shit out of all the people. I would
You
look
don't
for
do anymore. If you have conviction at 25 years old and an idea, like you can just start it. You can just do things. And that's because
no.
you don't need the same access to capital anymore. Like you can do it. It doesn't need to be a multi-billion dollar outcome. It could be.
Sure. I'm talking to the people who want that multi-billion dollar outcome like me.
That's silly. You're talking to no one because that doesn't happen.
What are you
Most people
talking?
start companies, and the best thing that can happen is you can have an outcome that changes your life for you. You
That
can
is
have
true.
build something that has an impact that changes things for you. I mean, like I think that's very possible. It's realistic. It's a thing that you can start with, and even if you're 25 years old, you can do it.
That's true, but I think that's not the intention of most people who are building companies. Even if you're going through YC, it's not to create a $5 million revenue generating profitable business. It's to try to create the next Airbnb or something like that.
Yeah, I think there's a lot in between, uh, like a $5 million business and Airbnb, and like
Yeah, of
that
course.
world, that universe, I think has been opened up. It's exploded, and it's in large part due to AI, and the ability to actually do more with less means not everyone needs to have a venture scale outcome.
Right.
Venture is a very specific funding source that supports a very specific kind of business. And it used to be that was really the only way to raise capital that didn't come with like massive debt.
Sure.
Now you can raise either a tiny amount of seed funding, you can raise nothing, you can bootstrap, and that's all way more doable with
But also the problem is that even if you can get to 10 or $50 million in revenue, there's so many competitors out there. So you may not that revenue may decay, right? Like I think that that's what we're seeing in a lot of these AI startups is that they're able to get to like $10 million in AR and then they just have a huge amount of churn because there's so many other products out there. So like you may be able to start something, raise money for it, and then have no customers in like 3 years because all your other competitors, they just blew past you. And so now you have a business worth nothing.
yeah, but you could join a Series B company and the same thing could happen to that company. So
Yeah.
I don't know that it's better to join some like, I think there are people that wanna start businesses and there are people that wanna join businesses, and if you're in the bucket of, like, having something you want to start and have conviction around it, like, there's really no better time. I don't care how old you are or how young you are, like, this is you the sooner you do it, like, the sooner you'll see if it's gonna pan out.
Yeah. I think that if your ultimate goal is to start a company, I don't think you need to start it right away. Like I think that there's so much you could learn from so many other people. Like I wish I would have done that. Like I wish when I was 20, I came and just moved to San Francisco. And in my younger years when I could work and didn't have a family and all that stuff, I just work around the clock and I'm going out to dinners and drinks and whatever and just like making a huge network. Like that is such a competitive advantage. And then hopefully in that time frame that you're into these industries and you're working on a bunch of different companies, yeah, maybe the companies don't pan out. That doesn't matter. Maybe you gain some insight into some problem that you were working at, and you're able to take that and actually create something. I just think that everybody else that's working on the periphery, right? Like AI agents for whatever, for law firms or whatever. There's so many of the, or for CX or whatever. Like there's going to be hundreds of companies like that. Like the chances you're going to even be able to create a defensible business is extremely low because the amount of competition is just so huge. And that goes to exactly my DTC example. Like I've seen the companies grow really quickly. And then all of a sudden, there's a competitor that is offering something that has a better product, and the cyclicality of the DTC world, I think, is going to kind of transfer over to a lot of these other startups, and they're just the defensibility is not there. So I think you have to have some unique insight. You obviously need to be super passionate, and I think that also you need to have a really great network. So I do, going back to my initial point, I think the mean age of people even creating successful companies, and that just could mean an exit, is I think that that is going to increase over time, and we won't have these super young founders that just kind of like made like it was when it was really hard to make even just a website or something like that. Like they think of somebody creating like Quora or even Facebook today, like that. Those are like super easy things to get started, and they obviously have network effects, which is why they're really hard to compete with. But now the actual technology component is not like a limiting factor to creating those companies.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's true. There's more competition than ever before now. And so like experience, I think does count for something in a way that maybe it hadn't because, you had an advantage just being able to build Facebook because you were an engineer. And now you have to be able to have the experience to know how to get through all the competition that's going to be out there.
Yeah.
I think business has just gotten, I mean, we're seeing that like things are just getting way more competitive.
Totally. And I really hate how, because now technology, you could argue, I would argue, is probably the most lucrative business to get into. Where before, like, I don't know, like a decade ago or 2 decades ago, it probably would have been finance. And how the same thing, that finance just attracted people for probably like the wrong reasons, and then they just wanted to make as much money, and they really didn't care about building products and stuff like that. I see the same shit happening now. I see so many people that are using like YC as like they're getting into Harvard, and they're just using it as kind of something to put on their resume, and they're just looking to make the most amount of money in the shortest amount of time with the least amount of work. And I really hate seeing that in this, but that's obviously what happens when you have like these huge outcomes and the Airbnbs and the Facebooks, and hear the stories of people that started them from very early on, and but I don't like these people who are just kind of starting it, in my opinion, for the wrong idea. I personally want both. I want to be extremely have a good outcome financially, but also I love the craft of actually creating something from nothing, and I wouldn't want to work for anybody else unless I had to. Ultimately,
Yeah. It's nice being the boss.
yeah, yeah. Could you work for anybody else?
Yeah, I could. I mean, I'm like, I I still feel like I prefer like a boss. That
You
sounds
do,
and
really?
I know like most CEOs are like, I could never go back to working for someone else. Like I really like being told what to do. It's like my personality. Like I like I'm an execution focused person. So I like knowing what I need to do and then doing it. And so like the way
Got
my
it.
workaround for that is like I'll talk to my team, I'll talk to my co-founder and I'll be like, what should I be doing? Like here's what
Right.
I think.
Right.
What do you think? What are the most important things? And the board, of course, like the board meetings give me a lot
Right.
of feedback. And then I go and do those things.
Right.
it's actually really hard for me to, like, my co-founder is way more like, she's the creative one. She can be left in a room by herself, and she'll come up with all these ideas, and I'm like, "No, no, no, like, what am I supposed to be doing in this room by myself?" And if no one's gonna tell me, then I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna come up with something, I'm gonna say it out loud, I'm gonna get people's feedback,
Right.
because I need to know that I'm, like, working on the right thing.
Right.
Um, so yeah, like, I would love a boss. It'd be great for someone to tell me what to work on so I didn't have to do that. That would be so nice. Uh, that's the hardest part of my job is, like, the ambiguity of, like, what the hell am I supposed to be doing?
Yeah.
Everyone at Winnie does, like, daily updates in Slack, just like
Yeah.
I did yesterday, what I do today,
Yeah.
and I do them too because, like, I need that accountability.
Yeah. It's great.
Need to be told if these are not the right things, like, "What do you want me to do?
Right.
What are you doing?"
Right.
Um, yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's a struggle.
It's true. Yeah. I'm the opposite of you. I'm the person coming up with crazy ideas.
Yeah. I mean, I
And
still come up with, like, crazy things that annoy the team of, like, "Should you be doing this? Should you be doing that?"
yeah. Right.
But, like,
Right.
for myself, I just need someone to tell me what to do.
Got it. Um, yeah. Any other topics you had on there? Well, we didn't actually talk. Since you went to the Super
Oh,
Bowl.
we didn't talk about the Super Bowl. I went to the
No.
Super Bowl, the Eagles won, highlight of my life. I've actually achieved why I don't care about being a billionaire, because I've achieved everything I want to achieve in life, and that is being there to witness the Eagles win the Super Bowl. That was it. That was the entire bucket list, and
What was
I'm
the
yeah.
feeling? What did you have like a
So, as you know, 2 years ago, I also went to the Super Bowl to
yeah.
see the Eagles play the Chiefs, and spoiler alert, they lost. And going into halftime, the Eagles were winning that game, and it was very celebratory.
Yeah.
And I feel like, when they ended up losing on what I think were, some unfair calls by the refs, like, it felt like I got the wind knocked out of me. Like, it was just like, how did this happen? I was my highest high, and now I'm
Right.
the lowest low. And so this time I was just really careful. Like, we never celebrated. Like, even 2-minute warning, like, the players are pouring Gatorade on Nick Sirianni. Like, I'm still incredibly nervous. Like, they took a knee at the end of the game and let the clock run out, and, like, I just did not believe we won until it was actually over. Um,
Right.
and so, like, I was not like, even though it was technically, a blowout, and everyone watching on TV was like, I turned off the TV, it was so boring, the Eagles were just destroying the Chiefs. Like,
Yeah.
I never felt that way. I was, like, nervous the whole time. We were cheering and we were excited, but we were still so cautious, so careful. And it still doesn't feel real. Like, I still can't believe that they won and I was there.
You're there. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was great.
Congrats, Sarah. Well, I just had the Canadian hockey team beat the US,
Oh,
so
yes.
that was my equivalent to any sort of championship. My two well, I'm a big hockey fan. I'm a Canucks fan. They've never won before.
Oh,
So this is as close as I'll ever get to championship.
yeah. But now I gotta switch gears because baseball's starting, and it's a whole new
Whole new
thing.
thing.
Gotta start from scratch and get the Phillies winning the World Series. So
Cool.
yeah.
Awesome. Well, let's end it on that. Always good to chat, Sarah. Enjoy your evenings with your favorite AI with Grok and Elon. And
Yep. Cuddle up
uh,
with Knock and Elon.
yeah. All right. Thanks everyone for listening. See ya. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.